Judge Robert Rader.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you as always. You Raleigh Charter students, if I don't look familiar and you don't know me, that's probably a good thing. I run into people a lot and they say, "You look familiar." And I said, that's not good. That's not a good thing. All right, when Gray asked me if I would come speak for a few minutes about the Justice Center, he asked Judge Stevens and I. Judge Stevens, in a vote of confidence, was awfully kind to say Rader will do it. So I'm going to lead off. He has been kind enough to say that he would make a few remarks at the very end. But let's go ahead and get started. I've tried to pack a lot of information into a short period of time here. So let's start with news from the courthouse. I see people commonly who ask me, how are things at the courthouse? And my standard response is business is booming. And I think it is. To give you some perspective on that, I have provided a handout, which you'll find on the table, which includes sort of some of the filing and dispositional numbers for the 10th Judicial District on one side. On the other side, it has the statewide numbers. So as you can see, we continue to process a lot of cases in the district. The case filings and disposition numbers, it gives you some idea of the caseload, but it doesn't portray or reflect all of the things that we do that are very time-consuming, that are just not included in these statistics. But I think it gives you a pretty good snapshot of the kind of caseload that we're dealing with in district court. Unfortunately, we seem to be doing more with less. When I came on the bench about 18 years ago, the portion of the state budget that went to the third branch of government was around 3%. It has gradually declined every year. It's now at about 2.23%. So I think the lesson we've learned is we're expected to do more with less, and the more you do, the less you get. So that's kind of what we live with, but that's okay. We understand that, and we've got a lot of good, devoted people at the courthouse who are working hard to move these cases. And I'm happy to say that when you look at those numbers, we dispose of about as many cases or more than are filed each year. Doesn't mean we don't have our hands full. All right, let's talk about court construction, since that's the topic that seems to consume a lot of our time. I can't help but talk about the future without looking at the past. And I also always like to take just a second to talk about where we've come from. We did the groundbreaking speech back, well, let me rephrase that. When I made some remarks at the groundbreaking ceremony, I don't think I've ever made a groundbreaking speech. I started my remarks with, in 1771, the first court was held in Wake County. And as I glanced around, I saw Judge Stevens and Colin and the sheriff and Lauren all look at each other, and I could tell they were thinking, oh my God, he's going to trace 200 and some years of legal history. I'm not going to do that to you, but I do think it's important to know that we've had 6 courthouses that have served Wake County over the years. So for the last 218 years, we've been in the same location. First courthouse in 1771 was over near the Boylan Bridge Brew Pub, near the Joel Lane House, and then it moved to town in 1795 to the current location. So for 218 years, the courthouse has existed in the same spot, and it's gone through several iterations. This is the 1883 courthouse. It's the oldest courthouse that we have a photo of. This was referred to by the media as the Temple of Justice, Lady Justice on top. It was built out of bricks because of fires that had happened. I thought it was interesting, this photo. I wanted to share it because you see out front, you'll see a horse and buggy, but yet if you look at this sign, it talks about wine, car, and DUIs. And I think that foreshadowed what's to come. Actually, that's wine of Cardui, which was an elixir, but I won't go into that. That's for another day. In 1915, we got a new modern courthouse, a very stately courthouse that existed, and some of the members of our association have practiced in this courthouse. And then we all know around the late 60s, after the Warren Commission's work and the Court of Appeals and District Court was created, we went to the current building, which is the current Wake County Courthouse. We all know what it looks like. This is when it was under construction in the late 60s with Raleigh's own Peden steel. So that brings us to today, to what Judge Stevens has commonly referred to as the Promised Land. For many years, he said, I don't know if I'll ever see the Promised Land. He's now seen it, and the question is, will he get to it? I'm confident he will, because we're so close. And when we talk about the Promised Land and the new Justice Center, it's important, I think, for us to look at the capital investment that the county has made over the last 10 years for the court system. And I was here invited 2 years ago when we sort of got started on construction to talk a little bit about this, and I mentioned some of these, but I think it's important to look at how much money the county has invested. There are a lot of court judicial districts around the state who one of their #1 complaints is they cannot get adequate facilities from their local county officials. And I'm happy to say that we've really not experienced that problem. You'll see 6 projects here. The Davie Street parking deck, a $30 million project that had to be built before demolition of the parking deck, the Judicial Services Building, and the old Garland Jones Building could even begin. So that's been open for several years now at the corner of Davie and McDowell. That will be the primary parking for the new Justice Center. Of course, the Justice Center, the Hammond Road Detention Center, I think a lot of people, this sort of flew under the radar if you don't go to the jail for any reason, which is a good thing. That was a $186 million project that opened last May. It's over 400,000 square feet that handles all the criminal booking, processing, our magistrates, and so on. That project, by the way, came in $42 million under budget. 10-year renovation of the courthouse, which I'll speak to in a minute. Public Safety Center renovations, the first 2 floors, which are currently underway and should be finished by the end of June, and then the Law Enforcement Training Center, which has been in place, a state-of-the-art facility for the Sheriff's Department. Now, fall of 2009, demolition was complete and the big dig started. March of 2010, excavation was well underway. By February of 2011, we topped out the building, and you can see what it looked like. At the time, we had the topping out ceremony. That's from Salisbury Street, directly behind the courthouse. And then the current Justice Center, which is now pretty much complete. This gives you a pretty good perspective of the downtown area. You'll see the existing courthouse and Century Post Office, so you can walk right across the street to one of the entrances. News and Observer down here, what I call Barker Towers here, and those of you know Dan Barker, and then the parking deck would be up in this corner that serves the courthouse. Entrance here and entrance here. So let's go to street level. This is a perspective of the courthouse from beside the Century Post Office. So you're seeing what we refer to commonly as the Salisbury Street entrance. This is the Nash Square entrance, sometimes referred to as the county entrance, since it is where most of the county administration will be. This is at the corner of McDowell and Martin Street. When you try to get your head around this building, because it's a very large building, it's easy to think of as 3 building blocks pushed together. You have a 4-story block here, a 3-story court services block here, and then an 11-story tower, which is the courtrooms and the most of the court functions. Now, when I say it's a very large building, it really is. This building, 576,000 square feet, it's larger than the Raleigh Civic Center. And sometimes when I say that, people say, is that real? It is correct. The Raleigh Civic Center has 509,000 square feet. Our current courthouse has about 266,000 square feet. So as you can see, it's a pretty massive structure, which is why it took so long to complete. This gives you an indication of how the square footage is allocated. Of course, the court function primarily 335,000, about a little over 100,000 square feet are for county administration. That's county commissioner, county attorney, county manager, register of deeds, tax office, finance office. And then below grades, which are your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, power plant that can drive the county office building and the courthouse in case of failure in those buildings, as well as parking and a tremendous staging area for inmates. When you think of the courthouse, and we've talked about this before, this is going to be quite a change from moving from one courthouse to two. The Justice Center will be purely devoted, almost exclusively devoted to the criminal law functions that we perform in the courts, and the existing courthouse will be the civil court functions. That's driven primarily because of horizontal transportation of inmates, the public, and so on, and security reasons. Also, if you were to do the math on those case filings and statistics that I distributed, about 75% of our caseload is criminal. So the idea here is to get the masses out of the existing courthouse and into a more suitable structure. If you look at the building, the way it's laid out, we talked about the underground. The first floor of the court tower will be our administrative traffic court and the clerk's office. The second, third, fourth, and seventh floors are your typical courtroom floors with 4 courtrooms per floor. On the second floor, you also have the clerk of court. Third floor, probation intake, community corrections, and your jury assembly area. So when you have jurors who are summoned to come to the courts now, they will come to this new facility. There will be a separate sort of lounge area over in the old courthouse in case they're impaneled over there on a civil jury. The 5th floor will be the public defender's offices, which is quite a change, having the public defender in the building, which will be convenient. 6th floor is a shell floor for future growth. 7th floor, Superior Court courtrooms, and the district attorney's offices are on 8 and half of 9. Grand jury room, interpreters on 9, and then all of the judges, Superior and District Court, will share space on the 10th floor. On the county side, which you'll remember was the McDowell Street, McDowell Martin, you'll have the Register of Deeds office back in the courthouse, which is great. On the first floor, the Commissioner's new boardroom, which seats about 240 people. On the second floor, tax office on the 3rd floor, and then the county manager, county commissioners, and so on the 4th floor. Just to help you get a feel for the way it is laid out in the interior, again, you have 2 entrances when you come to the Justice Center. You can come from the courthouse and walk straight over into the Salisbury Street entrance, or you can come in the county side, which is the McDowell Martin Street. Either way, the cream color represents public corridors. So this, as you come in, you go through security on both ends, which is a change in this respect because this will be the first time the county manager, county commissioners, and so on are required to go through security. So the Register of Deeds office will be in a secured setting as well as their meeting areas. The tan area represents the Register of Deeds office, the gold area is the clerk of court. Down here is our administrative traffic court. This building is so large, by the way, there's 2 street addresses. There's 201 South McDowell at the county entrance. There's 300 South Salisbury on the Salisbury Street side. The good news is all of our mailing addresses, P.O. boxes stay the same. All the phone numbers stay the same, so you don't have to worry about learning new phone numbers. This is, and I'm not going to go through every floor like this, but This is the second floor, which I think gives you a good idea of this flow of people and the secured area, which is a common theme in the way new courthouses are designed. You have really three corridors. You have the gold or yellow area, which is all the public corridor. You have the tan area, which is the staff secured area. And then you have the pink area, which are inmate holding cells. There are elevators in both of these inmate areas that go straight down for vertical transportation of inmates. You have staff elevators in the back side here, and then you have a bank of 6 elevators here plus escalators. This is, I recently went to the Durham County Courthouse and the Chatham County Courthouse grand opening. We have three counties nearby who are opening court facilities in the 6-month period. But when I was in Durham, I got tickled because they were talking about how secure it was. And the district attorney over there, Leon Stanback, who many of you know is a former Superior Court judge, he was talking about how secure it was. And he said, of course, I hope you'll come see me. My door's always open. And then he said, but you can't get to it, but that's okay. So we have to be conscious of that as we move into this facility. So let's go inside the building. If you were going in from the McDowell Martin Street side, this is what you would see. It's a large corridor, and you would turn to the right to go through security screening. If you were to go in the Salisbury Street side, the first thing you would see is this inscription with a quote from Article 4, Section 18 of the Constitution. You would then turn right to go through security screening, and as soon as you go through security screening, the first thing you see is an information booth, and you will notice panels there. No more will we have multiple pieces of 8.5 by 11 paper with names and dockets on it taped to the walls. This will be replaced by what I call airport monitors, and there are 4 on the first floor. And you can walk up and see where you are supposed to go to court. So every morning and every afternoon, someone, I assume in the clerk's office, Lauren, I hope that's right, presses a button, and these dockets are automatically downloaded into these monitors, and it's automatically divided equally among the 4 screens. So you can look by alphabet and see where your name is, and then it will tell you what courtroom, courtroom 201, 203, or administrative traffic court, or so on. If you are required to go to the administrative traffic courtroom, that would be on the first floor. You would never have to get on the elevators, the stairs, or the escalators. You would go straight to the administrative traffic court. This is the kiosk. There'll be queuing areas here for the public to go in and deal with their minor infractions and tickets without even having to go in the courtroom. Should you need to go to an upper floor, you have a choice of taking the stairs or taking the escalators or taking one of the high-speed, high-occupancy, very efficient elevators that there are 17 elevators in this building, some for staff, some for inmates, but plenty for the public. You will notice at the end another monitor. That monitor will actually contain signage for the building. So if someone relocates or there's a change, you don't have to go redo the sign. You can just do it electronically. We can also upload special events like swearing-ins or ceremonies that are going on can be highlighted in those digital monitors. When you get, it looks like the Mona Lisa ought to be here or something, but when you get to the upper floor and you've got, let's say you're going to the 3rd floor and you get to the 3rd floor off the escalator, you'll immediately see another monitor that will have all the dockets for that floor. So if you forget which courtroom, it will tell you. Then you can start to move toward your courtroom. If I were standing on the McDowell Street side of the building on the 2nd floor, this is the view I would have looking back towards Salisbury. And you can get a pretty good perspective of the interior of the building. 4 courtrooms along each floor, All of these courtrooms are slightly larger than our existing courtrooms. That's a complaint we've heard from other courthouses. The day they opened, their courtrooms were too small. We made sure that didn't happen. On the Salisbury Street end of the building, on each floor, there is what we call a ceremonial courtroom, which is oversized. Moving, this was taken from the 4th floor, again, looking back toward the McDowell Street side. And again, you see the corridors of courtrooms, walkways that go over to the jury assembly lounge. Up here, you'll see the public defender's offices. On the right-hand side, these are large windows that flood this area with natural light. This is a silver LEED certified building. And then you would move to the courtroom where you're supposed to be. This is a typical entrance to a courtroom. As you can see, once again, a monitor. This monitor would have all the defendants who are scheduled for that particular courtroom. And unlike our existing system, where the doors are sort of loud in the back of the courtroom, this has a set of double doors and then a sound lock vestibule where there are 2 conference rooms, one on each side where the attorneys can visit with clients. And they can access those without having to go inside the courtroom if they want. Once you enter the courtroom, this is a typical non-jury courtroom. Since District Court Criminal doesn't use juries, we felt like it would be a space saver and time saver if we didn't build out jury boxes in all the courtrooms. So about, I'd say 10, I think, are non-jury, 8 are jury courtrooms. This is a typical non-jury courtroom. As you can see, there is a television monitor, there are cameras, there's a monitor on the judge's desk. So we have the technological capability to show exhibits on the screen and on the judge's screen. In the jury courtrooms, they have drop-down projectors, LED projectors, and screens that are accessible to attorneys and the judge. The judge will control those exhibits before they're published to the jury. This is a typical jury box in one of the ceremonial courtrooms. One of the questions I get frequently is, are there going to be attorney workrooms? There are a lot of conference rooms around the building that are available for attorneys to meet with clients or to find a quiet place to work. This is one of 2 designated attorney workrooms that will be on the 3rd and 4th floor. This one happens to have a kitchen area and restrooms. Each of the attorney workrooms will also have lockers, okay? So you can lock your laptop up while you're going to court or whatever your personal belongings. Now, as you can see, this is quite a change from where we've been. If you went to the Justice Center and went through the entire building, it would take you a good 1.5 to 2 hours to go through it. We don't have that time here, so I want to just use this as a teaser and make sure that all of you take the time to come see this building in person. Now, there's lots of good news about this building. This building was originally scheduled to be finished in October. The certificate of occupancy is expected to be issued in 2 to 3 weeks. We'll be moving in June. So it's opening well ahead of schedule. Right now, it is $30 million under budget. I think the county commissioners, Phil Stout in construction and design as a project manager says he thinks that will get higher and actually be more, but 30 million is a safe bet at this point. I think the county commissioners were very wise to take advantage of the timing and do this during the recession economic downturn when a lot of people were scared to do construction because it has paid off in many ways. So we're ahead of schedule, we're under budget, 17 elevators and escalators. And you'll remember in the existing courthouse there was a little value engineering that went on which resulted in a cost savings by reducing the number of elevators. And I'm glad we didn't have to do that balancing act here. You'll note when I put this slide together, if we had to, this scale tips a little more than that scale. So. Now, a lot of you have been, I get questions all the time, when's it going to open, is it going to be attorney workrooms and so on, and all of you have been very kind to make very nice remarks about, oh, Judge Ray, you're doing such a good job, such a good job. I can tell you, as my criminal clients wrongfully and rightfully accused used to say, it won't me. This has been a team effort, from the get-go. Any success that we've had as a result of my involvement can best be explained by this slide. Even a blind hog finds an acorn every now and then. I think that may be true of the judicial performance evaluations, but I included this because late Judge George Green, that was one of his favorite sayings, that and when the telephone poles start to look like picket fence, you know you're going too fast. So I had to include that. But I also think that it's important that we do give credit where credit is due. And there's a lot of people who have worked a lot of hard hours on this. Lauren Freeman has spent an enormous amount of time. Judge Stevens, Kristen Fetter, Brian Collins has been at the table, Howard Cummings, Colin Willoughby, and the list goes on and on. It's hard to name everybody. Obviously, the county commissioners are the ones that made the ultimate decision to proceed with this over the years. And the county manager, David Cook, I can't say enough good things about for putting together the financing on this particular project. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention these two gentlemen. Thomas Edison, I think, is the one who said, vision without execution is hallucination. These are the guys that kept us from just having hallucinations about this building. Dave Goodwin, on the left, is chair of our Court Space Committee and works with us on a daily basis, weekly basis, on all the court facilities and has been our liaison. On the right, Phil Stout, who's getting ready to retire after many years with the county, who has been the project manager on this and the detention center and many other buildings. These are the guys that did the heavy lifting. All right, the most common question beyond, well, one of the most common questions is, when is it open? This is sort of the timeline. There's a couple dates I hope you'll remember. May 31st is when we actually start, the mover comes in and starts moving. Register of Deeds office is going to be our soft opening on June 12th. They will open for business, and they will be the only office open for business at that time. The week of the Bar Association Convention, Advocates for Justice, Judges Conference, and so on, is the week of June 17th. That's when the DA, PD's office, judges, and criminal clerk division moves. And then on July 1, the county, that's a Monday, will have their grand opening and ribbon cutting ceremony. I would also invite you, that day we are scheduling and planning what I think it will be the first joint session or joint ceremonial session of District and Superior Court that day at 1 o'clock. The Chief Justice will be with us, as will Judge John Martin from the Court of Appeals. And we have a couple other speakers, two in particular esteemed members of the bar representing the criminal defense bar, Wade Smith and Robert McMillan, who've been kind enough to join us that day. First sessions of court will begin on July 2nd. So, as I said, I want to make sure all of you see this building up close and personal. So, on behalf of the Wake County Bar and the 10th Judicial District, I want to invite all of you to a special luncheon on May 22nd. This is a private preview just for members of the 10th Judicial District Bar. It is your opportunity to see the building before the move begins and before it opens. Lunch will be served, no cost. Lunch will be served from 12:30 to 2. The building will be open from 12:30 to 4. Tours will be available, and Nan Hanna, Ed Gaskins, and others from her committee are here who have been working on the tour committee, putting those tours together. So I hope you'll mark that on your calendar. All right, the last thing is what's going to happen with the existing courthouse. Of course, it'll be used for civil, but what, if any, changes will we see there? I call it the courthouse shuffle, and I'll just spend a minute on that. As most of you know, and we talked about this 2 years ago when I came, there's been a 10-year phase plan in the existing courthouse to basically renovate the entire building. All of that has been done except for a small portion on 7th floor and small portion on the 8th floor. They have basically gutted floor by floor down to the concrete, installed sprinkler systems, done asbestos abatement, and brought all the floors up to code. This would give you an idea of what our old court, there's only 1 or 2 courtrooms that still look like this. It'll be demolished starting in the fall. This is what one of the newer courtrooms looked like. One change that may take place is the North Carolina Business Court that has been in Campbell Law School for, I guess, since its inception. There has not been room for the business court in the Wake County Courthouse. We just don't have space for it. The business court's lease is up at the end of the year with Campbell. So there are discussions currently underway to move the business court into the Wake County Courthouse. That has not been finalized, but we expect that that decision will be finalized within the next few weeks. If so, Judge Jolly and his staff will move into the courthouse. So what will happen? There will be a big shuffle. As you can see, the clerk's office currently on 11 will move down to 1, the civil division. All of the courtrooms, with exception of civil superior, will start moving to the lower courtrooms, to the lower floors. So domestic, which is currently on 8 and 9, will go to 2. The business court, if it moves in, the courtroom will be on 3. Our magistrates, who are cramped in small claims court, will be moving to 3. Juvenile world will be on 4. 5 will be our district civil. This is basically the 9th floor moving to the lower floors. And Lauren Freeman and our people have been working together to try to move all of the DV, domestic violence intake services, to that floor so it can be one-stop shopping when you're looking for a civil protective order, as opposed to now where you have to go to one floor, then down to the courtroom, then back to the clerk's office, and then back to another location to get service. 6th floor has been renovated and will open in just a few weeks. Custody mediation will be there. And then I know you see 7, 8, and 11 with probation, and you're thinking, wait a minute, Rader, you said criminal would not be in this building. The legislature was kind enough a few years ago, as a cost-saving measure for the state, to tell the counties that they are now responsible for office space for all probation officers. So the county had to go out and basically lease space for 150 probation officers. Since there is now adequate space in this building, they're going to be moving those probation field officers back into the courthouse. 9 will become a shell floor, will be closed, and then the 10th floor, since it's been recently renovated, it will remain Superior Court Civil. Kristen Fetter, the trial court administrator, and her staff will be on this floor, along with, if Judge Jolly moves in, he and his staff will be up there with the trial court administrator. Special Proceedings Estates Division will stay where it is. The timeline for that, you can expect to see courtrooms moving as early as August, and we'll keep everyone informed. Clerk of Court Civil Division, there's a little work that has to go into that. So you can anticipate that late August, early September. The business court, if it moves in, would move in by the end of the year. And then all the movement, probation officers and everyone that would go in this building, it would happen by the end of the fiscal year, which would be June of next year. So that's sort of the news for the courthouse. I hope all of you will mark May 22nd on your calendar and be there for lunch. Judge Stevens, would you come up? Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you.
I asked Robert if I could share a minute or two of the allotted time to make some personal reflections and make sure the right people get credit for this building. If someone asked me what was the greatest asset in the Wake County Courthouse, I would tell them that's a simple question: Robert Rader. Robert Rader. And if you can probably tell by now, this building, the new building, and I'll probably always call it the new courthouse as opposed to the Justice Center. The new building is Robert Rader's child. And if you take a picture of Robert Rader and you take a picture of the new building and you look at it together, you'll say, yeah, there's some resemblance there. This whole project has been years in the making. And it's true, I think I said to Ed Gaskins a couple of years ago, I've always treated it a little bit like Moses. I would talk about the promised land. I would stand at the river and point out the promised land. The river, of course, is Salisbury Street. I would prepare my people for the promised land, but I did not foresee that I would actually be around to go to the promised land. And to the shock and dismay of everyone, including myself, unless the river dramatically rises between now and July 1st, it looks like I probably am going to go over to the new building and to our promised land. But please let there be no mistake about it. This is the building that Robert Rader, Lauren Freeman, Kristen Fetter, Howard Cummings, and to some extent Ripley Rand, before he went off to be the United States Attorney in the Middle District, built. They designed it and they built it. We sat around a table years ago and we stacked boxes on top of one another to try to figure out what this building would look like and get some concept of how we could make it work, along with Dave Goodwin and Phil Stout. And Dave would always say, it's going to be a beautiful thing. And we always said, our goal is not that it be a beautiful thing. Our goal is that it will be functional and we will be able to make it work. And we did not want to repeat the mistakes of the past that we have suffered through in our current building. I was licensed to practice in 1970, and as a lawyer, and then later as a Superior Court judge. I've tried cases in well over 50 of the 100 counties in the state. And I've tried cases in some beautiful old courthouses. And one of the most memorable things about most of those courthouses is when you walk into the front door, you are invited to walk up beautiful marble stairs to the courtroom. If you wanted to find an elevator, you would have to have a map of the building to find an elevator in most of those courthouses. In 1970, in our current courthouse, the architects decided they would create a court facility in which we had a lobby, in which we invited you to 4 elevators, where you stood with your neighbor, waiting impatiently to be packed into a sardine-sized elevator. And more often than not, you were waiting with somebody else's neighbor, because if it were your neighbor, you would move out of the neighborhood. Hopefully, we won't suffer through that anymore. Hopefully, you will never again get on an elevator with somebody wearing an orange jumpsuit when we move to the new building. At that time, we had 2 resident Superior Court judges, E.Y. Bickett and Judge James H. Pugh Bailey. We had 500 lawyers practicing law in Wake County. Today we have 6 resident Superior Court judges. We have 6 special Superior Court judges. We have 19 district court judges, and we have a 5,000+ member bar. Our new building has to be functional, it has to be efficient, and it has to be designed to work, and we believe that it is. We took some of those simple concepts from some of those old courthouses in the design of this building, and we're proud of the 17 elevators. But we're also proud of the fact that when you walk into this building, you are actually invited to walk up gently sloping stairs to the first 2 or 3 levels of our courthouse. You are invited to go to an escalator. You'll probably have to look around to find the elevator, and that was by design. We believe that we've created for you a functional building. We required the architects to build mock-ups to scale of our courtrooms, and then we took our clerks there in that courtroom, that mock-up courtroom, and sat them in the clerk's seat and said, what's wrong with this? What works and doesn't work? What do we need? We took court reporters there and says, will this work? What can you see? What can you hear? We took lawyers, we took judges, we took bailiffs. We took regular folks and said, will this work? What's wrong with it? And we are satisfied that we've done a pretty good job at working out some of the bugs that currently exist in our courthouse. We've been real concerned about where the heating and air vents are so that you can actually hear, and the jurors can actually hear. We consulted with everybody. We asked security folks, what can we do better? We asked the transport of prisoners, what can we do better? We asked people cleaning the building, what can we do better to make this building work? So the credit goes to Robert, to Lauren, to Kristen, for not only doing their job every day, but also for taking the time on top of that to help create a building that we think will work and function well. And Robert and I had some fights with the young architects who wanted to build a modern courthouse that looked like something else other than a courthouse. And we, from time to time, had to say, courtrooms need to look like courtrooms. We're old-fashioned. Mahogany benches, mahogany wood paneling, black upholstered chairs. What is it about black and mahogany that you don't understand? And I don't know how many times we said it, but we said it a lot. The first time I just saw the design of the jury pool room, I said, this is not a disco. This is a jury pool room. We have to make it modern and comfortable, but it's still a jury pool room. And so we think we won that fight. We think that you'll be proud of this building when you see it. We think you will believe that it has a modern design, that it is functional, but it still has the trappings that are appropriate and traditional that characterize a court facility and a courthouse and a courtroom. And so I would hope that when you go over there, whether it's on May the 22nd or July the 1st or 2nd, and you're walking around and you happen to see something that doesn't work or something that you don't like, you can say, well, Moses screwed that up. But if you do find something you like and you're proud of it, I would hope that you will tell Robert and Lauren and Kristen and Howard, thank you very much for a job well done. Thank you.